cliche of living on bread and water when you buy the property, is it in reality true? We're going to talk about it today. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Candy. It's a good combination you've got back there. We're talking off air, free candy and Christmas trees, Mark.
Yeah, I've got a Christmas tree in the back of the van. There it is there, ready to set up for tonight. Giddy up.
Nice. And does that lollipop go on the top, replace the star, or does it?
No, my mother-in-law gave me this lollipop, and I have no idea why she gave it to me, but I'll find another home for it. Not really into candy.
It's a bit of a controversial debate, but are you a family that puts like the canes on the tree? Do you put edible treats on the tree?
No.
No, I don't think that's...
You guys?
No, we have tried it, but no.
Yeah, no, I'm not really into that candy. I don't know. Is anyone into that candy? I don't know. I think you got to be like really, really like 5-year-old style to enjoy that, and that's about it.
That could hurt a few people's feelings, but let's move on.
Let's move on. So, Billy, living on bread and water, it is the reality of buying a property is that you think that when you take on the new mortgage after you put in your hard-earned savings into your deposit and you pay your stamp duty and you go into a more commitment into a property, it's a pretty scary feeling that you've felt recently.
Yeah, and let's just admit, Mark, to all the viewers, that I didn't even know what you meant by the bread and water saying. Said so we can tell. Sorry, Mum and Dad.
So I said to Billy this morning, I said, it's a bit bread and water, after you buy a property. He goes, what? I go, bread and water. What? I go, like you don't have food. You just live on bread and water. He's like, don't know what that even means.
Very lucky to be in that position. I should take it for granted. But
I think it's an old-fashioned saying as well.
I got the catch, and the principle applies. It's definitely scary, but do you know what I reckon the worst part about buying a property is that you feel really financially like stable with this huge bank balance because it's a house deposit, and then when that's like taken away from you, it's like everything's just gone and it just goes.
And not only is it taken away from you, but stamped on you is this big bloody mortgage.
Yeah. But there's obviously that little bit of a time delay where you put an offer in on a property, then it gets accepted, and then you pay your deposit, and the first little bit goes, yeah, Jonathan, let's not talk about it. And then, but it does take a little bit of time before everything sort of appears on screen in terms of the mortgage, and you actually know where you sit financially again. Because in my experience, I had all these sort of expenses coming in. So, the lawyer, solicitors. You had all these outgoing strata reports, nothing big, but, all these little expenses as well as your big deposit. And then you think, wow, where do I even sit now? Because it's been so consistent saving for such a long time, and then all of a sudden it just goes.
And there's also the concept of if it's an investment, what if the property's not rented? Scary. There's also the concept of what if interest rates go up? Scary. So I think that you sort of start to think you're going to be on bread and water a little bit. Is that reality? Like, I think if you are a little bit older, and you maybe have done it a couple of times before, so you've sold and bought and sold and whatever. What is the actual reality? And Billy, you've only done this recently, so you're a perfect subject to have this topic, person to have this topic with. You're only sort of 3 months into it now. Are you still hurting? Are you still on bread and water, or what's your mindset? What's the reality?
I think it's. I'm at a stage now where I definitely know where all my expenses sit, which means I can plan a little bit better than I could at the start. Before I was really like sort of anxious. I've got to save everything because I really don't know when the next bill is coming in. But the solicitors sent me a fantastic letter, which I'm sure everyone gets after buying a property, their post-settlement letter, where all the rates had been adjusted and they gave me the dates and the cost of what the next quarter would be. And that just gives you the opportunity to sort of plan in advance. But the other thing that I have to say works in a first home buyer's favor, Mark, is the fact that you've got the first 12 months of buying a property. 6 months of those you obviously need to live in it, but the other 6 months you can try and get some money through it. Now, I've done that in the form of an Airbnb, but that's given me time to sort of just adjust slowly, so it's not all such quick pace.
With the cash flow. So the reality of, and I do have to say this, guys, being a real estate agent, it's the biggest, probably one of the biggest deterrents. It's a psychological one, as much as it is. It's probably, I'd say, this is a great topic to have, because how much of it is actually psychological, how much of it is a barrier psychologically not to buy a property, as opposed to the reality of the financial pain. Like another case for you, Billy, if you had to put where you are at the moment, how much of the bread and water concept of I'm not going to be able to afford this, I'm screwed, I can't spend any money on anything else but the property, how much of that was, in a percentage, was reality to, like your brain throwing the handbrake up to the reality of, no, that didn't happen? Would it be 90% that, I thought 90% chance I thought I was going to be screwed when you went into this, or were you like, oh, I'll be right, 50-50 on it, to the reality, to now, when you look at the position now, is it like that was a bunch of, like, that emotion was wasted emotion? Like, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but where are you on that?
Definitely, I wouldn't say to anyone it's wasted emotion, because that's just the reality of your brain thinking of the worst case scenario all the time. And at the end of the day, you want to be prepared for the worst case scenario. There's no point in hoping for the best, because hope isn't reality, right? So I think if you at least prepare yourself for the worst and then it comes slightly better, you've always got a smile on your face, because then you're always better off and it's never quite as bad. But in reality, it hasn't been nearly as bad as I thought it would be. But in saying that, I haven't lived in the property for 6 months of the first 12 months just yet. And that's a condition of the first home buyer's grant. So I think there's a little bit more pain to be had. I've had the luxury of getting some cash flow through, which is definitely going to help with the overall costs of the first 12 months. But it's feasible. And when you're going into this, whatever property you do end up buying, your broker should be telling you in a ballpark figure whether it's actually feasible or not. And you sort of know. You just know.
You just know. And also what Jonathan's saying is that he calculated into his repayments 4% higher than the actual interest rate. I do have to say, guys and girls, that if the bank's going to give you the money, the odds are that you can afford it. So if you don't believe your qualification of can you afford the loan is enough, the banks certainly is. The banks will factor in your spending. The banks will factor in your income. The banks will factor in your interest. They also, like Jonathan Creek just said, they also will put a margin on there of 3 or 4% on top of the current rate to make sure you can still afford it within their tables. So I think, guys, if you are stressed about it, just always remember, my father-in-law had a great saying. He used to say this: if you owe the banks 100,000, you're in trouble. If you owe the banks $1 million, they're in trouble.
But I think that's
They're going to give you the money.
I think that's a great point, and I actually never thought about that. These guys are the kings and queens of assessing risk, and it's their money, so they're not going to get it wrong.
No. So again, I think, a lot of this space that we're playing within today is mental space, not financial space. I think it's actually getting over that mental reality of, will I have to live on bread and water? Can I really afford it? Do I really deserve it? Should I really do this? I think if the bank's going to turn around and say, look, we see you into this, there's a lot of regulation these days that APRA's bought, responsible lending. So I think if a bank's going to responsibly lend to you, there's already a layer of qualification that, yes, you can do this. Obviously, you're the one that needs to pay the bills and follow through with it and have that backbone. But I think if the bank's going to come along and say, mate, we're going to do this for you, you should get rid of that anxiety of that new mortgage a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I was very surprised when I got the unconditional finance letter saying that I'm going to get the full loan, exactly what I asked for. And I thought, wow, these guys actually believe it as much as I do.
Yeah, but Billy, you don't actually know that there was all of those thousands of thoughts before you got that letter that you had to contend with. So, you probably started thinking about buying a property how long before you actually bought it?
Oh, I mean, when it starts as a dream, before you even have got the first 5% of your 5% deposit, next to no money. It's just down the timeline. I put a time stamp. I put a time on my goal. So I just wanted it before I turned 19. Whilst I was 18, I wanted to buy a property. And I got it on the last day.
Oh, did you? But that dream, when was that seeded? When did you start saying, "Yep, I'm gonna actually go. I'm gonna go for buying a property"?
It would have been 2.5 years before when I started earning good money part time.
So guys and girls who are watching, let's put this into perspective. You yourself, Billy, you thought about it 2.5 years before, up until getting that letter from the bank. That's a lot of thoughts of buying a property. If you thought about it once a day, that's 600 thoughts. So I think my point is managing that in your brain, and then you finally get that letter from the bank saying, yep, we're going to do this for you, we're going to help you. I think you just got to stay positive. That's my point. And you don't have to live on bread and water. That's a reality of buying a property that, it ends up, you're okay, yeah? It ends up you just end up putting one foot in front of the other. It's like breathing.
Well, the other point you talked about off air, which is another good one, is buying a property is so different to, buying a share portfolio or something like that, where everyone is backing you. The parents, your extended family, your friends, and they're all just chipping in to make it work. Now, it doesn't mean they're chipping in financially, saying, here's the next mortgage repayment, but like mum and dad, look, here's my spaghetti bolognese for the day, so I don't have to buy lunch. Everyone's just helping out where possible, and it seems like small things, but obviously goes a long way when they all add up.
Now, if you bought $25,000 of Bitcoin or $50,000 of Bitcoin, I don't mean all due respect, but I don't think you would have had the support from friends and family, employers, colleagues at work around you like you do with the property. There is something beautiful, and you do have a safety net that you're not as much on bread and water when you're buying your property, because everyone it's a bit of a holistic and not a herbal person, but it's a bit of a wholesome thing to do, that everyone gathers around and says, "Oh mate, I'll shout you the drink," or I'll shout, "Oh mum and dad, I'll make you the lunch," or I think my point is everyone just hustles and gathers around and helps you a little bit more.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, I can't imagine how that can be compared to any other sort of purchase of the same significant value.
Yep. And guys, that is a show. Billy, thank you very, very much. Anything else you want to add?
No, thank you, Mark. Pleasure as always.
Bread and water.
It's quite a lot easier talking about me.
Well, you know what? There's a lot to learn as well. I think there's Jonathan Creek's an expert on videos here, and I think your path is a path that a lot of people dream about, being young. And even if you're older, I think you dream about it for your own kids or for your nephew or for your, so I think a lot of people can resonate and a lot of people can identify with what you felt and what you're going through. So, mate, it's easy to talk about, but it's also, some people are very shy. Most people are shy about talking about it. So it's great that you brought it up. Helps people.
Yeah, it's good. And it's, as much as I didn't know the saying, the bread and water saying, I'm definitely not anything special in terms of just a normal kid. Been working part-time for a long time, right up until the final years of school, and then full-time work straight away. So it's everything like sort of done is normal in terms of anyone else can do it. Worked as a lifeguard at the local pool, so no fancy jobs. It's just normal hard work.
That's it.
Yep. Have a good.
Luke Moroney, Jeff Luby, Jonathan Creek, the guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you need any topics spoken about, you let us know. The modern version of bread and water is Diet Coke and 2-minute noodles.
Sounds like my recent camping trip, Mark.
That's what we spoke about yesterday, actually. So, all right, that's a long story, but take care, huh? See you, everyone. Bye.